And we are live. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this live edition of Bitcoin News Weekly, where we go over our trusty newsletter, Bitcoin News Weekly. I'm joined here by Thea. How you doing, Thea?
Morning, everyone. Hi. Happy to be here again. I'm having the best week ever. I think everyone here is also probably having the most exciting best week ever with like all the Bitcoin news, Bitcoin treasury news. And yeah, I'm so excited to just like dive right in and see what is going on in Bitcoin this week.
Yes. So you are on your Grand American tour. You flew in, you were in Florida for the strategy conference. Tell us about it. How was it being there in person?
Yeah, so last week when we were on our live, I just arrived, right? So it's been a week now. I was in Orlando, Florida for the Strategy World Conference. Honestly, guys, it was amazing. It's probably one of the best conferences I've ever been to. Going into it, I had no idea like what it was going to be like. I just assumed it was going to be like this big conference, like one of those like Bitcoin Prague or like Bitcoin 2025, but it was actually very corporate. Like there were like half, but maybe less than half were actually the Bitcoin people. Most of them were people who are on the strategy corporate side, people who have been clients of strategy for the past like 15, 20 years or something. So it was so interesting to meet and talk to people who had no idea about, or like they knew about it because they've been doing it for the past 4 years, but they just kind of like were like, okay, yeah, that's that. We're on the BI AI side. But yeah, it's just electric, just walking around and you see Feng Li, the CEO, just like hi, and then like Andrew Kang just like walking around. I asked for a photo with Andrew, and then a lady who was working at strategy was like, how do you know? Is he famous? And I'm like, this is Andrew Kang, CFO, and she's like, oh, okay, he's famous. So I was like having the best time interviewing everyone, meeting all the like Bitcoin people, True North, a lot of like Bitcoin OG influencers or like just like X people. Yeah, like I could go on for like the hour, but we have news to cover.
Yeah, we do have news to cover, but no, but I think this is interesting. I mean, you were there first person. The energy. I mean, I think that's so important. You know, at each different conference, depending on where Bitcoin is in the cycle and the things that are happening in the news, the energy at different conferences could be very different. But yet, how would you describe the vibe in the room being there?
Honestly, I've never felt such amazing energy by like everyone there was on the same page. We were so aligned. We were like Bitcoin only. Let's take Bitcoin to the next level. Let's introduce Bitcoin to everyone. And Bitcoin pump like it's like mid conference. There was this viral picture of Michael Saylor in front, like looking at the Bitcoin 1 minute chart, and I was like, damn. He's just like us, but
He's
also yeah,
just like
I
us.
literally pumped after that. So I was like, did Sailor know something we didn't know or was gonna come? PR. But yeah, anyways, it was the energy was so crazy. And also like just like being around everyone who's like hyping each other up, talking about okay, let's work together, let's help each other, like let's how do we make like Bitcoin be like widely adopted amongst like different corporations, and how do we use Bitcoin? Because I think that is the way, right? How do we get corporations to start using Bitcoin as payments, as like a storage of wealth, and all these different things? So, indescribable energy, electric.
Nice. Wow. What a great way to start your trip, your Grand American Bitcoin tour.
Yeah.
And do you want to tell the people where you are today?
I am in DC right now. So, the strategy headquarters, strategy hub, that will be what I will be doing for the next 2 to 3 days. So it'll be really exciting because I did tell people I'm gonna do like a live walkthrough. So I'm doing a vlog. So I think most people know I'm doing vlog of last week, which is gonna be releasing sometime this week. And then this week will have its own little vlog of me going around DC, seeing the strategy hub, strategy headquarters, talking to strategy employees and like what they think of just like the new addition like Bitcoin, and also opening strategy hub officially. I think there are lots of projects and lots of companies that are working out a strategy hub that I really want to highlight. I want to go there and be like, how does it feel being here? Because to me, what it really feels like, and I don't know if you guys feel the same, is this is the beginning of like kind of like YC, Y Combinator. Like out there, this is maybe the new incubator, the new YC of Bitcoin. Like we're gonna see so many Bitcoin companies or like Bitcoin projects coming out of like this cycle, like this year. And Feng himself said on stage, right, that right now there's 70 Bitcoin treasury companies. In the next year, there's going to be an explosion of 700 because so many of us are working on advocacy, education, and just bringing Bitcoin to a kind of like simplified idea so that people can like adopt it and use it and put Bitcoin on your balance sheet, like all these different like applications for Bitcoin. It is so good, guys. So crazy.
Nice, yes, and we're just here riding the wave, right? It's absolutely amazing to witness this. The corporate explosion is something new and not stopping, right? It is accelerating. As we can see today, we have Michael Saylor coming out, acquiring 13,390 Bitcoin for $1.34 billion at just under 100K per Bitcoin, bringing their total to 568,840 Bitcoin. The man doesn't stop. He was probably purchasing some Bitcoin, looking at the 5-minute chart while during the conference last week, right? So yeah, I mean, this is a huge buy, right? Whenever you can scoop up over $1 billion of Bitcoin at a time, you are making huge moves. And I'm sure that this was part of why Bitcoin pumped to $104,000 last week, right?
Absolutely. So that's crazy.
Absolutely amazing stuff. And yes, as you likely are to know, we are here to discuss Bitcoin News Weekly. Our weekly newsletter comes out Monday morning, getting you up to date of everything big that's happening in the space of Bitcoin. So you don't have to spend 8 hours a day scrolling X and Primal and Stacker News and Reddit like we do over here. So yes, the title for this week's edition is Bitcoin for Corporations, From Theory to Strategic Arms Race. Yeah, and I think that's really like the quote of the conference pretty much, is that we're going from 70 Bitcoin treasury companies to 700 within the next year. And the talk of the town this morning that happened too late to be added to the newsletter is this chart. Kindly. We have
this is Godzilla candle.
Godzilla candle, yes, up hundreds of percent this morning, as we have.
Is it right? I saw some people tweet like 600% up pre-market. That's crazy.
That's
That's
crazy. Yes.
level of attention any company. Like it's so hard to find that level of attention if you're like a company. This is the only way. Bitcoin is like honestly the only way to add vitality and like just crazy attention to you.
Yeah, it's the narrative of the moment, and I mean, Bitcoin was able to get to $1 trillion asset by retail, right? We hit that for the first time last cycle in 2021, at around almost 20 million coins having been mined, just under 19.8 million, I think, is the total number. But that means that we need to have a price over $50,000 in order to be $1 trillion asset. Now that we are at 100,000, it is a $2 trillion asset, and to get it to the next order of magnitude higher, to get to a $10 trillion asset, you really need a new narrative. You need new rocket fuel. And it seems like these Bitcoin treasury companies might be that answer. And so, yes, this morning we have the news that David Bailey's Bitcoin treasury company, Nakamoto, is merging with Kindly MD and will trade under the ticker KDLY. So I think previously, I mean, of course, he came out with this news that he was going to start Nakamoto, a Bitcoin treasury company. But in order to be listed very quickly, you merge with a company who's already listed. And so this Kindly MD, I'm not sure what they did, but something to do with medicine, I suppose. They had a $24 million market cap as of last week. And they just announced that they're going to they just raised $710 million to launch a Bitcoin treasury. So you go from $24 million market cap to $710 million worth of Bitcoin. You are making waves, and you wind up with a chart like this. Pretty crazy stuff. I mean, I think if we turn it over to candles, you can see that it's retraced. It's definitely retraced from the euphoric opening of $31. It's down to 15. But if you just look at the stock last week, it was at $3. So it's still still.
It's bound to happen, but I think what this shows is the level of attention just purely simply announcing that you're becoming a Bitcoin treasury company is so insane, right? And I just think that, it's bullish for everyone. Actually, some people, because I've been posting my Bitcoin for corporations and some like treasury about like Metaplan, people are like, oh, this is like a honeypot, or like, promoting other things other than Bitcoin is like not great. I'm like, guys, you got to recontextualize, right? Companies buying Bitcoin, treasury companies buying Bitcoin is good for retail and good for all of us, because that means that there are people who are holding Bitcoin, institution holding Bitcoin long term, right? For price action and like for the sustainability of Bitcoin itself. Like, you cannot want mass adoption without seeing like, or wanting people to kind of think of new ways or do new things. Like, the Bitcoin treasury is actually a real legitimate way of adopting Bitcoin, because this is the early stage, right? In the future, then we would do Bitcoin payments for between companies, right? We would do like Bitcoin commissions for projects, or like different things. Like, this is how corporations can then be exposed to Bitcoin and then start using Bitcoin. Like, this is good.
This is good. And you're right. I think that's a great point to bring up, is the fact that once you become a Bitcoin treasury company, you're a holder, because the
Ooh,
second that you sell, that narrative goes away. Even if you sell one Bitcoin, if Michael Saylor was to sell one Bitcoin, the whole entire game that he was playing would drastically change.
yeah.
So they know that. They know that they need to hold on, and that they need to, whether we see another drastic bear market or not, they need to hold on through it, because that's what gives them their long-term value, is that they continue to accumulate, continue to add Bitcoin per share for their shareholders, and yeah, they're long-term holders. So that is, let's dive right in. And I think I would just like to jump down a little bit to the market section right here, because Bitcoin ETFs see fresh all-time highs for cumulative inflows, hitting over 41 billion. And if we look at this chart, yeah, they were previously at 40. They dipped down during the sell-off post tariffs, but now they've come roaring back. So ETF holders have been pretty diamond-handed, but you do see when there's big market turns, like we saw with the tariffs, they do sell off a bit. Unlike these treasury companies who need to hold on. So the Bitcoin ETFs are definitely being bought up by these institutions and boomers, but they don't have as diamond hands as the treasury companies, but they're back in play and they're setting new all-time highs.
Mm.
So yes, Thea, is there any story that you would like to dive into first?
Yes, so I was looking at Strike lending, right? Bitcoin lending. And honestly, this is also something very interesting for us retail kind of like investors, or people who are looking to hold Bitcoin, not sell our Bitcoin, but what can I do, right? People, when I say, oh yeah, I hold everything I have in Bitcoin, they're like, how do you live? How do you live your life? How do you get money? Well, there are going to be more companies like Strike doing this. So what they just released and what they're opening up services, you can now lend money based on your Bitcoin, right? So you have a Bitcoin holding with them, and then you can borrow money based off of your Bitcoin as collateral. And this is a good way for people who have a need to use some money. Like, in the video that Jack Mahler was talking about this new service, he was saying there was a case study where this father, his daughter just had a new baby and they want to buy a house, and he wanted to help buy the house for him. And it's like a beautiful, like heartwarming story, right? And instead of selling off his Bitcoin, which obviously he does not want to, because we are at the bottom, like we are going to the moon, guys. Right? You don't want to sell your Bitcoin. So he can then use that Bitcoin as collateral and then take out some money to help pay for that. And I think the terms are, do you want to go to the website, see some of the terms? I think it was like 12% and 13% annually or something like that, which he did mention. Some people are like, oh, like the interest so high. Well, it's early stages, right? He said that he would rather roll it out first and then slowly adjust the interest as they're able to get the fiat or like the US dollars for cheaper, and then have people be able to borrow Bitcoin for cheaper. But now it's kind of like early stages. They had really great reviews from the beta testing. So like, why don't we be able to do this for people? Because the rich, the ultra rich have been doing this for years, guys. I think everyone knows about like real estate investing and like buying property in Manhattan or like Miami beachfront, and then, not selling your property, right? And then you borrowing against it. This is for us. Like, we might not be able to kind of like buy all this Manhattan real estate or Miami, but we can buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin is for everyone. You can buy Bitcoin, I can buy Bitcoin, and then we can borrow Bitcoin based off of like what we have, right? So I think this is like an awesome news, and more projects, companies will then turn to like a Bitcoin lending solution as more people adopt Bitcoin and not wanting to sell Bitcoin, and or accept Bitcoin as part of their payment for a service or something, and then hold that Bitcoin and get money from that. I think this is super awesome. Are we on the website? Yeah.
Yes.
You want to go through it a little bit with me?
Yeah.
What is it?
So yeah, this is up top, Bitcoin backed loans. I agree with you. I think that this is a great strategy for Bitcoin holders who don't want to sell their Bitcoin, of course, but want to unlock some of that Bitcoin wealth. And I mean, we can talk about certain things here. I mean, 12% is sort of a steep rate. But as Jack said in his response video, this is just the beginning. It's hard to start new financial products. And no matter how much we believe in Bitcoin, TradFi still sees Bitcoin as a risky asset. And thus you are going to see high APRs to begin with. So yes, but this is the future, right? People have been talking about this heavily since 2021, but now we are starting to see consumer products that are open to the public, and this is pretty cool. This is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
And I think just having something out there and getting started is kind of the goal, right? Once people use it, once there's users, you can say, oh, look, there's so much traction. Like, what can we do to lower this? And I think it is interesting. Like, when I first saw the API, I was like, that's a little bit high. Maybe it's like cheaper on like something like Aave or something. But it is what it is. We want adoption. We want Bitcoin acceleration. So I think this type of news is actually quite like very bullish, very exciting. Yeah. I myself haven't actually used Bitcoin lending before, but because of this, I think I will look into it and see. But what about you, Rob? Have you tried?
I have not got a Bitcoin loan yet. I think it's good for big purchases, right? Say you're going to buy a house, but you don't want to sell your Bitcoin to do so.
Mm.
Take out a loan and go for it. So yeah, I mean, this is interesting. We can borrow. How much do you need to buy a house?
Depends where you live, right?
Depends on where you live, of course. But say you want to borrow $150,000 for a down payment, you would need to post 3.28 Bitcoin. So that's $300,000+ of course, right now. If Bitcoin hit 60K, you'd be liquidated, of course. But yeah, I mean, it is, and I mean, to get $150,000, you are going to pay almost $20,000 in interest, right? So, I mean, that's a significant amount, of course, but these rates will come down, and this will unlock the wealth of a lot of Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
Michael says to never sell. Well, at the same time, you got to live, and you cannot live within a Bitcoin, and not everybody has a beachfront villa like Michael Saylor already, right? So if you want to get your own,
So you got to stack stats right now.
yeah.
By the time the interest rates go down and your average buying price is so low, because the new bull, it's gonna be fine. I think this is motivation to keep stacking.
Yeah, and it's just the beginning, right? I think it's just like technology. This is the worst it will ever be, and the most expensive it will ever be, right? And it's only going to get better. The terms, the custody. I mean, there was also people bringing up questions as to what happens when the Bitcoin when you hand it over to them, right? There are some questions as to whether it's being rehypothecated. There are other lending services that allow you to hold on to one of the keys so that you know that it's not being rehypothecated. But yeah, I think the terms will get better, and this is a great step to just see that the industry is moving forward.
Mm.
Nice, yes, and we would be remiss to not address the fact that within the last week, we just saw the first state level Bitcoin strategic reserves be signed into law. So the big one was New Hampshire. This happened early last week, and they created a Bitcoin reserve fund that allows up to 5% of state funds to go into Bitcoin. This is a pretty big deal. It's a technically is not entitled a strategic Bitcoin reserve, but
Mhm.
it is a reserve that allows them to invest in digital assets and precious metals with it that have a market cap over 500 billion. So only Bitcoin fits into that category at this time, with a market cap of over 2 trillion. Um, but yeah, this is huge. I mean, this is New Hampshire. This is the live free or die state. There's a lot of libertarians up there. It's funny how libertarians, like around New Hampshire and whatnot, they have a funny relationship with Bitcoin. Many of them went over into the Bitcoin Cash camp a couple of years ago, but now their state has got a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Mm. And Arizona as well, right?
So yes, there's a funny story with Arizona because the governor Katie Hobbs actually had a Bitcoin reserve bill that was very similar to one that was signed into law in New Hampshire on her desk, and she originally vetoed it. However, there was two bills that were going through the motions, the legislative process at the same time, and the second one was passed. However, this is much watered down. This is not a bill that allows them to go out and buy Bitcoin like the one in New Hampshire does.
Yeah.
Instead, I think it allows them to keep any seized Bitcoin in which they had, or to accept donations. So Governor Katie Hobbs wrote a letter saying that she would not allow Arizonans' retirement funds to be invested into an untested asset like digital currencies and Bitcoin. Even though Bitcoin has been the best performing asset of the last decade.
Yeah. But it's still, I think, just being in the US, like I see all the news and I see all these laws being passed, and it's so extremely bullish because so many of things, so many things are happening really quickly, and like so many people are working behind this Bitcoin adoption in the US. It really makes me question and see like what is going to happen to the rest of the world, right? Like we see news, like I think one of the other news articles was from Taiwan, Samson Mao going to Taiwan to talk to legislators about potentially adopting a Bitcoin strategy or like some type of Bitcoin treasury, but it's still in very early stages of conversation. Whereas in the US, like we see so many like already some bills being passed and all that. I think coming out of this Bitcoin adoption race, US is definitely in the lead by like a landslide right now. I think there are some countries, I think like Bhutan or like okay, this news right now, right? Like Taiwan, they're still working on it. Bhutan has already like, adopted or have some type of Bitcoin treasury. I know Oman also has like a little bit of it. Like there are so many countries that have had something, but not at a level like the US. So I really think that the US is on a great track to kind of being the leaders. And I think that is what the current administration wants to be seen as and known as, right? The leaders of this new like revolution, like this digital revolution, Bitcoin being adopted. It really is coming together like faster than you think. Like I feel like people expect it to happen right away, but this is as fast as it could possibly happen. I think it's really happening, guys.
Yeah, and it's funny because you would, from a game theoretical standpoint,
Mhm.
think that America has the most to lose, right? I mean, we've got the money printer, we have the world reserve currency. For America to be open to a competitor, even if it is just a $2 trillion baby in comparison to the flood of dollars that are around the world, it still is pretty surprising that it would come from the top, right? I mean, you would expect countries like Bhutan and El Salvador, countries, especially like El Salvador, it doesn't have their own money printer, right? They were running on dollars. They had to eat the inflation that came out of America, and it had no benefit of that inflation, right? They couldn't pay down their debt with cheaper dollars because they printed them up. No, they had to just eat the inflation that was coming from up north. And so it makes sense that they would be interested in a currency like Bitcoin. But for
Mhm.
America to be diving headfirst into it, I mean, I really think it goes to show the power of the America's federated system, right? The fact that there are 50 states that can make their own laws and set up their own treasuries. If it was just one monolithic federal government on top that set the rules for everywhere, you could have a administration like the last one we just had that was very hostile towards Bitcoin and did a lot of work to try to push it away. But because we have this federated system and these two parties that like to do the opposite of each other. We've got an administration who's very friendly and open to it. But
Yeah.
yes, this news in
So,
Taiwan, of course, Samson making the trip over there after going to Japan. And this guy right here, Ko Ju-chun, he's a legislator in Taiwan. He has been making speeches, and he seems super excited about trying to get Bitcoin into Taiwan's official treasury.
yeah. But I still see some potential issues that may come out of this because obviously we know China's stance right now is still quite hostile to like just cryptocurrency or like just Bitcoin in general. We haven't really heard any official announcement of like pro Bitcoin strategies from China. So I could see how this could take some time right now. The all that they're talking about is a lot of advocacy, right? A lot of education, a lot of like talking to legislators about well, how this could work, how it would work. But because of how close Taiwan and China yeah, they it's like difficult to say what will actually happen and will it spring up some hostility, like some tension between what's happening right now, geopolitical pressure. So I think this is all like still developing, and yeah, I think it's good to have a look and see. Yeah, I'm still kind of like just looking out on it. Like I don't know how fast that this would happen because I'm also scared that like game theory, right? Like if it happens too fast and if Taiwan like pushes through, what's gonna happen? How China is gonna react, and isn't like everything is still very sensitive right now with like China and the US. I think Trump recently announced that he's talked to China. It's all looking really bright and everything, but that's just yesterday or day before, right? So things could change really fast.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the trade deal, lots of stuff going around. I mean, just this is an amazing chart, right?
Mm.
February 1st, 10% tariffs on all goods, bolstered up to 20% in March. And then for China, ratcheted up very quickly from 20 up to 145% tariffs on everything coming out of China. This is just a month ago that this was enacted. And then they have a chat in Switzerland between this guy right here, Scott Bessent, and the Chinese delegation. And the
Yeah.
tariffs are completely wiped out, right? So it's caused trillions of dollars to be eliminated and then added back onto the stock market over the past month. It's
This is
really
playing with us at some point. I don't know. I feel like there's like some like lots of things happening, but it's really crazy.
yeah,
It,
and I mean, a lot of people thought that there was some 5D chess going on, right? That Trump was going to do this strategic decoupling from China, that he wanted to force all of our allies onto our side and put a strong line in the sand and say, you're either with America or you're with China, pick a side. But what happened was it seemed as if the bond market revolted. We've got over $36 trillion worth of debt. We've got over $1 trillion worth of interest payments that the country needs to make each year just to service this debt.
yeah.
And so, if the bond market doesn't agree and those rates continue to go up, the value of those treasuries goes down. Man, it really forces their hand. And so, it, the question was, could Trump handle, could he take the pain? Could he take a market sell off? There was all this talk about this being Main Street turn instead of Wall Street's turn. Wall Street has had the rule of the roost for decades now. Now it's time for Main Street to get some get fed. But
Mhm.
what do we see? I mean, this seems like a capitulation, really. That all that was for naught. It really made it was a bold gamble, but they had their cards called, and the bluff was seen for what it was. So we could see maybe this is just a pause, and their gathering forces are going to go down a new path. But from what it seems like, the whole entire trade war was sort of a quick, short, and ultimately unsuccessful experiment on behalf of America.
Yeah. Oh, it's still, like how many months since the inauguration? I feel like there will be a lot more trials and errors and like what's gonna happen between all the trade of the world. But yeah, it's interesting, you know?
Mm.
Like, things were so crazy, and now things are back, and then I'm like, "Okay, how do I catch up with what's happening?" Good
Yeah.
thing I have Bitcoin, you know, guys, Bitcoin
Yes,
is like
exactly. Good to know.
terror-proof. I hold everything in Bitcoin, I was not very affected by any of that, so I'm like, "Be a Bitcoiner."
Yeah, the best performing asset throughout the whole entire tariff saga.
Yeah.
So let's dive back into the Strategy World Conference. And of course, this headline was amazing. As you said before, 700 public companies will hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet by next year. We are around 70, 80 now. So what other companies other than Strategy stood out to you at the conference? Who made good speeches? Was there any interesting tidbits that you gleaned?
So honestly, I think out of what I got out of this conference is this quote by Feng Li, the CEO, right? That right now there's 70 and then there will be 700. It sounds crazy, the level of explosion, but you guys don't understand. There were so many corporations, there were so many individual business owners or like people who were interested in doing this. All they wanted was they're like, okay, how do I do it? Like, who are some people I can talk to get this done? And what does it look like? Even Feng Li and Michael Saylor went on stage to talk about the importance of the digital transformation of investor relations when companies do adopt a Bitcoin treasury, right? Because it's not just about, okay, you buy Bitcoin up. You have to actually evolve and transform with like this new adoption because like us, right, when we become a Bitcoiner, it's not just okay, yeah, we're like trading Bitcoin, whatever. When you fully adopt Bitcoin, there's a transformation within your ideology, within your beliefs, your philosophy, which a company has to evolve as well, their culture. I saw like Metaplanet was a big one that was there. I heard about their story. I was able to talk to their team. I am so like bullish on the team and just like their leadership mentality, their visionary, you know, to take a company that was not even in the financial realms, right? Like hotels, like that is like so not finance and it's very real estate based to be so brave. I think like another quote is like bravery and courage is needed, humility, right, to be able to do this, to switch from a hotel business, which is essentially a real estate business, and go into the balance sheet business. It was like brave of Simon, right? So yeah, they really stood out, taking a company from the brink of bankruptcy to over $1 billion in a year. How else do you do it? The answer is Bitcoin, only
Mhm,
Bitcoin.
mhm.
And so they were really a standout. They were similar scientific. They were also a big standout, like the second largest Bitcoin holder, corporate holder in the world, right? They were so amazing, very inspiring to hear about them because they come at it like very scientific approach. I think in terms of marketing and culture, they're still working on how they can like push what is their culture that they bring to their investors and all that. But crazy and cooler also is was another big one that was like presenting and talking. But I think in general my main impression was that it is so exciting, right? There were so many people. I was sitting next to business leaders who had companies from like Singapore or like from Europe who were on the stock exchange, but they were like doing really badly and they were really writing notes, writing down like what they can actually do. It is, yeah, I don't know. Like this is actually the start of a very crazy transformation for what Bitcoin will look like for corporations. So I think if you are a investor, you should really keep in mind and look at this news. If you are not already on the Bitcoin standard yourself, this would be the best time to do your research, study Bitcoin 100 hours, listen to maybe Michael Saylor's talks, they're very entertaining, and then like make that change for yourself, have that transformation in your life. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, and it's a global phenomenon too, right? We've
Mhm.
got Metaplanet in Japan. We've got this company here, Jet King. They are in India, and we have Similar Scientific and of course MicroStrategy here in America, along with Cooler. But this is happening all over. Oh yes, and also of course the Blockchain Group
Oh,
in
yes.
France.
I
Uh,
interviewed them.
oh, you
I
did
was
nice.
they're also so cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mentioned like in Europe, there's like some what's it called like I don't know like main characters in the different continents. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Who's gonna be the first Southeast Asian one? That's my question.
Hey, yeah,
Hey.
you should when you go home, you gotta lead that charge. You gotta
Yeah,
find somebody in Thailand to take
yeah.
it over.
My
Very
my
cool.
happen. We're figuring that out.
Oh yeah, yeah, behind the scenes. Okay, cool. If anybody here has a company in Thailand and they want to do the Bitcoin treasury,
Oh,
reach out.
Singapore stock market looking very interesting.
Oh, Singapore. Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. And one thing that stood out from the blockchain group, France's Bitcoin treasury company, is that they want to get 1% of all the Bitcoin. They want 210,000 Bitcoin by 2030. And it'll be interesting to see if any other company is able to get to 100,000 Bitcoin, right? Because we've got MicroStrategy now, it just came out this morning, updated their stat to 568,000. And I think Metaplanet was able to surpass El Salvador
Yeah. Just this morning, right? It's like,
just this morning with their latest purchase. Yes.
yeah.
So they both, El Salvador and Metaplanet, have Bitcoin stacks in the mid 6,000s, and then Semler's in the 3,000. And so, I mean, but you can start off small and grow
I
very quickly.
Oh, maybe I was wrong. I in the talk, I think they were like higher than that now, but I'll have to check. But yeah, it's everything's happening so fast. All the numbers, like you
Yeah.
can say a number today and then tomorrow it's like a different number. But yeah, crazy.
Yes. Cool. So yeah, so let's dive into some other news here. This is interesting for adoption. I definitely am in the camp that people who are scared to use their Bitcoin as money, I think that you are missing out on the real magic of this revolution here. Spend your Bitcoin. Don't be afraid to spend and replace. Use it. See what it's like to scan a QR code and pay for something in Bitcoin. It feels cool. It's like
Makes it
magical
real.
internet money, right?
It actually
And
makes it real for you.
yeah, were you
Yeah.
spending? Could you spend Bitcoin at the Strategy World? Were they able to? Were they selling anything for Bitcoin there?
No, but they were
Mm,
having lots of Bitcoin merch, orange
yeah,
ties and Bitcoin things. But well, to be honest, I didn't really spend much money because they had like free food and everything. I was just like grifting off free food
yeah,
and buying a little bit of merch. But yeah, I think next year or like there would be a lot more like easy to use terminals where you could just scan and pay your Bitcoin.
yeah. I
That's
mean, those exist, right? The Bitcoinized machines
mm,
coming out of Brazil, amazing stuff. They powered the Bitcoin Atlantis conference back last March, where they everything was sold for Bitcoin, right? And it's so cool to be able to just they plug it in, they give you a QR code, you scan with your phone, and boom, you send over some Sats, and you get your sandwich. Speaking of sandwiches for Bitcoin, Steak and Shake announces Bitcoin payments will be at all U.S. locations starting May 16th. That's
mhm.
4 days from now,
Yeah,
end of this week, making Bitcoin payments available to over 100 million customers. So yes,
it's exciting. I've never been to Steak and Shake, but exciting.
yeah,
Maybe I'll make a video. Go to Steak and Shake, pay Bitcoin.
yeah, I think they're mostly located in the Midwest.
Mhm,
Not so many over here on the East Coast, at least as far as I've seen. But
mhm.
yeah, on your way over to Las Vegas, stop by, see if you can pay for Bitcoin for a steak
And
sandwich.
then
The shake.
the thing about paying a Bitcoin is like, it's gonna be like people will clown you and be like, "Oh, you paid this much of your Bitcoin, like buying the pizza or whatever." But it's gonna be the norm, guys. It's gonna be what we hope Bitcoin to be, the new monetary kind of like exchange of the world, peer to peer. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it
gonna
needs it needs to be a medium of exchange in order to reach its full potential. If it's just a stagnant store of value, there's ways that it could be co-opted, and then it's not a pretty picture for the story a couple years down the road. But if people take more of an initiative to be willing to accept Bitcoin and to sell their goods and services for Bitcoin, I think we'll be able to accelerate hyper Bitcoinization much faster than we have it today. Um, cool. So, this is some news out of Asia here. Cornell University putting out a paper saying that leveraging surplus electricity, profitability
Mhm.
of Bitcoin mining is a national strategy in South Korea. So you were just in Korea, right?
I
And
was in South Korea.
but
Yeah.
Bitcoin adoption wasn't too popular.
I think it is becoming. I think a lot of people are, there's like news about Bitcoin ETF approval and then retract and then Bitcoin ETF approval again. It's very deja vu. And Bitcoin mining, there are a lot actually Bitcoin mining companies, like private companies coming out of South Korea. And a lot of, I think South Korea has been hit very hard with the cryptocurrency wave. So a lot of people who are like who hear about Bitcoin, they don't actually know the difference between Bitcoin and all the gambling stuff and the cryptocurrency stuff that exists in South Korea. So it will take a lot of re-education and also kind of like mentality shift to be able to understand, hey, wait, Bitcoin is very different. This is not a gamble, like kind of like your casino meme coin trading anymore, which I think will happen. South Korea has always been very entrepreneurial and very future forward in terms of like technology adoption. So I can see that happening for them. And then they're proposing the Bitcoin ETF again. So we'll see what will happen. And I think this is very interesting that they've chosen South Korea as like a leveraging the surplus electricity. Yeah, like I've always known and I've always heard and met a lot of people who do have Bitcoin mines and worked in Bitcoin mining in South Korea. They also kind of leverage like other countries, like the owners might be South Korean, they go to like cheaper electricity countries like Vietnam, or in the past they used to be Thailand, but now I think less in Thailand because electricity is becoming more expensive. So yeah, it's a lot of Asia you will see in the next few years have more of a bigger position or like player in these type of mining facilities, mining situations, because it's so cheap there.
Oh yeah, energy.
Hmm. Yeah. Like I don't like, I think in the US it's like extremely expensive. Like everything. Okay, since being here, everything is expensive. Like food is expensive, petrol, everything is expensive. So yeah, I would say it's more bullish for like anywhere in Asia, Southeast Asia specifically, for any of these mining facilities.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, this is you said that Korea has been swept up with the whole crypto gambling and speculating wave, right? But this is the opposite of that, right?
Yeah,
Using surplus electricity to make the Korea Electric Power Corporation's energy resources more efficient.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, this is a technical paper coming out of Cornell University, and I mean, Bitcoin is so amazing because it solves so many different kinds of problems. And if you can turn your energy producers and make them more efficient and create additional revenue using electricity that they already have, that's a surplus that's not going to be used, that's going to be wasted. Why not, right? So these are the types of papers that are really pushing Bitcoin adoption further in ways that you don't see in the headlines, but have a great way of becoming insidious, putting the roots down, and really making a change on a
yeah.
deeper level.
If this is successful, South Korea might really adopt it because South Korea has one of the highest levels of household debt, and there's just so like the debt issue in South Korea is so bad that yeah, if this becomes really successful and widely accepted um to what's it called throughout the whole country, then we can definitely see South Korea becoming like a big player in doing Bitcoin mining then, because
Mm,
I've always heard and also spoken to a lot of South Koreans. It has been one of the biggest problems within the 20th century for South Koreans. Like they accelerated it so fast because of like, the LG and also Samsung kind of like explosion. So many people have there's actually like a financial issue in South Korea right now. Like personal finances is like really bad for a lot of individuals. So I think Bitcoin is the answer to your problems, right? To a lot of people's problems. Yeah.
yes, and I know you got to go. You are going on a live tour of the strategy offices and their co-working hub, so looking forward to that. Um, yeah. So, but before we go, I think we'll just leave on this last news tidbit: is that Roswell, New Mexico, last week became the first city to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. They are not purchasing Bitcoin per se, but they are open to donations, and they got a large one last week worth over $10,000. Somebody sent over 0.111 BTC. And so, yeah, now they've got a strategic reserve worth over $15,000, and that can be used. They have a certain hold'll period. I think it is a decade. They cannot touch it, but it will be used to pay for, I believe, resources for seniors, whether it's electricity or utilities in general, water payments for seniors of their community, as well as disaster relief. So if there's ever a disaster, they can tap into those funds. But yeah, from the state level to the municipal and on the federal, Bitcoin adoption, Bitcoin strategic reserves are being put into motion, signed into law, and it seems like an idea whose time has come, right? So this is spreading very quickly, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yep, me too. It's very
All
exciting.
right.
Bitcoin this is the year. This is such an exciting year, and I am so excited to see what happens. And I'm excited to, be able to like talk to you guys about all the news and everything that's happening in Bitcoin. I have to go
Yeah.
now, Laura. So thank you so much, Rob. And yeah, see you guys next week for more
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
See you guys next week, same time, Monday morning. We'll be doing it. All right. See you then. Bye bye.